I did not have a copy, and the library's copy was checked out, and I was currently reading library copies. I went and I ordered them on Amazon, okay? Hey guys, so in today's video, I'm doing a September reading wrap-up, and now, I will say, I'm gonna try and do these each month as long as I've read more than like one book. But this month, I actually finally broke my almost year-long reading slump. Like, I have barely read, because I had a couple of months that I read a lot, and then I basically didn't read for a bunch of months. But anyways, in today's video, I'm doing my September reading wrap-up where I'm going to talk about all the books that I read this month. So, as an overview, I read 4 books this month, I DNFed 1 book, and I'm currently reading a book. Well, technically, I'm currently reading 2 books. I'll talk more about that towards the end. I'm just going to jump right into it, and we're going to start with the first book I read this month, and that is Real Not Perfect by Stephanie Coleman. This is the first book in the Riverbend Friends series, which is a Christian, I thought it was a Christian romance, but there was like no romance in this book at all, so I don't think it's technically a romance series. But anyways, I absolutely flew through this book, although I will say it's not necessarily because I loved it. I wasn't actually a huge fan of this book. I think it was just that it was shorter and I was very determined to read it. And then after that, I got a dopamine boost that made me want to keep reading. But this book is about our main character, Tessa, and she has what's called a perfect life, but then all of a sudden her dad walks out on her family. There is a reason for that, but I'm not going to get into it because it's kind of a spoiler. And her best friend moves away to Florida. So Tessa has to figure out, like, find new friends because her best friend who kept her friend group glued together is the one that moved away, and she's not really good friends with anyone else in that friend group, so she has to figure out her new place. And then on top of that, she's struggling with everything happening with her parents, and so we just kind of follow Tessa through all of that. And I will say there is a tidbit of romance, but technically not really. She has a crush on a guy, and we do follow that through a little bit of the book, and there is, I can't say too much about it, but there is a slight romance side story. If you've ever read this, it has less romance than this book, so definitely, like, if you don't like romance, don't let that scare you off of this book. And I ended up rating this book 4 stars when I read it. I think I'd lower that back down to, like, 3 stars. Like, it was good, but I don't think I would ever reread it. I don't think I'll end up recommending it to people because, like I said, I just wasn't a huge fan of the storyline, and I wasn't attached to the characters either. I only really kept reading it because I was determined to finish a book. So I really feel like I was really nice on this rating since I literally do not think about this book. So that was the first book I read this month. And like I said, I finished that in 2 days. I read that between the 11th and the 12th. And then after I finished that one, I immediately went back into my next book. So I ended up finishing this book on the 13th, and that is The Gilded Cage by Lynette Noni. If you have been following my channel, you're gonna know how this is gonna go. I loved this book, okay? This book, I don't know what it was, but I feel like it was much better than the first book of the series because I instantly went into the 3rd book after this. I finished this, and I immediately picked up The Blood Traitor, which is the 3rd book in the trilogy. And if you don't know what the prison healer is about, so we follow Kiva, who is the prison healer. So she is the healer of the prison. And she has been in this prison for, I believe it was 10 years. Yeah, because she came to the prison when she was 7, and she's now 17. And we follow her journey. The rebel queen ends up showing up at the prison, and Kiva has to protect her and keep her alive, or she could lose everything. The emotions and the plot twists, I will say, Lynette Noni writes plot twists so well. Like, the end of this book had me shook. Honestly, I cannot believe that I did not immediately go and finish Gilded Cage because the plot twists in this had me shook. The 2nd book in the series, we were fixing this plot twist and setting up for plot twists in the 3rd book, and this, basically, please go read this series because this book was so worth it. I rated this one, I think, 4.5 stars. Honestly, deserved. No, I did rate it a full 5 stars, and I concur with that. This is probably, I'm actually going to say my 2nd favorite book of the series this one is my third favorite because the next book I read was Blood Traitor by Lynette Noni, which is the third and final book in the Prison Healer series. After the end of Gilded Cage, because the Gilded Cage ends on like a cliffhanger, I immediately wanted to jump into this book, okay? I did not have a copy, and the library's copy was checked out, and I was currently reading library copies. I went and I ordered them on Amazon, okay? You have no idea how rare it is for me to do that, okay? I usually will wait for the book from the library, or I'll buy it on Kindle. I ordered it off of Amazon. I was so desperate. Basically, this book, best thing I think I have read as of late. Like, you just can't compare to this book, okay? Like, there is no matching this book's energy. So this is the wrap-up of the series, and this is the final book. And this one is the longest of the series, and I flew through this. That's kind of insane. And the last night I read it, let me tell you, there is a, I can't tell you without spoiling it, but there is a thing that Lynette Noni does that if I, like, legitimately, I cried, okay? Which is a rare feat for me. I usually don't cry for books. Like, I get emotional, but I don't actually cry. I cried, okay? Lynette Noni is so diabolical and I love it. So please go read this series. I love it. Best thing I've read in ages. That being said, this wasn't this month, but I did also read Wandering Wild by Lynette Noni, which is her romance. Also amazing, by the way. This one, I think, was 4.5 stars, because there were a couple storylines I wasn't a huge fan of in this one. But, like, basically go check out Lynette Noni, because she's amazing. Legitimately, this is probably my new favorite series. And then, I picked up the next book, and I had a hard time getting into this one, because I was coming off of this series, and I loved this series so much. So, but that being said, it still only took me 4 days with it being a 300-page book. And that was over 2 school days. So, and that was Wings of Starlight by Allison Saft. I think that's how you say her last name. I apologize if it's not. If you don't know what this book is about, this is about Queen Clarion and Lord Mallory from Tinkerbell. As a child, my favorite movie of all times was probably Tangled first, but then I'd say it was Tinkerbell's Secret of the Wings, which that is when we meet Lord Mallory, and that is like the only movie I think he's in. I don't remember. Don't quote me on that, okay? It's been a while. But anyways, that was my favorite, and even as a young child, I always wondered what their story was. But basically, we follow, Queen Clarion as she's becoming queen, and then her story with Mallory, because in Secret of the Wings, it's obvious that those two had something going on, because they tell Tinkerbell and her sister, because that's the plot line of Secret of the Wings, is Tinkerbell has a sister who is a winter fairy, and Tinkerbell is a warm fairy. And warm fairies can't go into winter because their wings will freeze and shatter, and winter fairies can't go into summer because their wings will melt. They warn Tinkerbell and her sister that they can't cross the border, and then they tell them this story about 2 fairies that would meet at the border every night, and then one of their wings shattered, and so that's why Queen Clarion made the rule. And then later in the movie, we see that Lord Mallory always flies his owl because he has a broken wing. And then at the end of the movie, the 2 of them kiss. And yeah, so this is their story, and let me tell you, it fulfilled my childhood dreams, okay? It was really cute. The end was devastating, but I can be okay because I know that the movie exists, and I know that they're like, it works out in the movie, and this takes place before the movie, so, like, I know that the movie exists. But anyways, this book was really good. Like I said, I had a hard time getting into the writing. I feel like it could have been a little bit better written, especially because we follow, in, like, the first couple of chapters, it's just Clarion, talking about how boring it is training to be the queen, and, like, after finishing the book, I understand why that was needed, but I will say it made it really hard to get into it because it was like the first 2 chapters and they're really long chapters. But once you meet Lord Mallory, it speeds up and then it gets really good. It's just getting to the point of meeting Lord Mallory was really, really boring, if I'm being totally honest. But I did always love Queen Clarion, so I didn't have that big of an issue getting into it, except that I was coming off of this series. And yeah, so I think if you really liked that movie, and especially if you need like just a different book, because this book was very, very unique, and I love that. If you need something that's different than your normal read, especially if you're a fantasy girly or a romance girly, this is for you, because you will love it. Okay, I'm telling you, you will love this. I ended up reading this book. I rated it 4.5 stars, which I would agree with. I would say because it was kind of hard to get into, it wouldn't be a full 5 stars, but it was really, really good, and I do still think about it. I don't know if that's just because I really like Clarion and Lord Mallory, but I do still think about it, and I did really, really enjoy this book, and I will tell everybody to go read this, especially because, like, look at this cover. This cover is stunning. I have this one displayed because it's so stunning. Yeah, basically, this book was very good, and I do suggest that you go read this, especially if you like Tinkerbell growing up, or if, like, you're older and your kids enjoyed Tinkerbell, please go read this. It is so good. But yeah, and then after I finished that, here's where the hard one comes in. I picked up this book. This book I did rate, even though I DNF'd it, because I got, like, I think 60% of the way through, which I honestly think is far enough to give it a valid rating, with the grain of salt that I did DNF it. So maybe the ending redeemed it a little bit. But I rated it 2.5 stars. Because I will say I did kind of really like a couple of the characters, like the main male character, Rook. But that being said, the storyline of this book, I will just read you the back of the book. Every enchantment has a price. Isabel is a prodigy portrait artist with a dangerous set of clients, the immortal fair folk. But when she receives her first royal patron, Rook, the autumn prince, she makes a terrible mistake. She paints mortal sorrow in his eyes, a weakness that could cost him his life. Furious, Rook spirits Isabel away to stand trial for her crime. But something is seriously amiss in his world, and they are attacked from every side. Forced to depend upon each other for survival, their alliance blossoms into trust, perhaps even love, a forbidden emotion that would render both their lives forfeit. What force could Isabel's paintings conjure that is powerful enough to defy the ancient malice of the fairy courts? So, that being said, the part of the book that really hooked me was the fact that she was going to have to stand trial and all of this. I will just tell you right now, that part of the plot line goes out the window pretty quickly, okay? We honestly don't even focus on the fact that Rook could die for that, or the fact that, you know, Isabel should be standing trial for that. And also, the pacing felt very off to me. When she's painting his portrait, she kind of talks about how she thinks she's fallen in love, and then she talks about how it'll never work because he's a fair folk, and also he's going back to the Autumn Court. This isn't really spoilers, at least in my opinion. Sorry if you think this is. And then all of a sudden, she hates him again. And then all of a sudden, they fall back in love, and there's a really, really weirdly placed spice. It's not like majorly, it was only like a page that I skipped, but it was really close to spice. And it was really, really random. And it felt like, I can get over if it makes sense that it was there, or like it kind of made sense what spot it was in for if you liked spice. Because, I mean, hello, one of my favorite duologies is Divine Rivals duology. But this book, it felt very off. Okay, it really, yeah. I had about 100 pages left when I DNF'd it, and it's about a 300-page book. I would not recommend this, honestly. I am going to donate it to my library. Probably might be someone's cup of tea, but it felt very off to me and not the best written. I don't know if that's just this author or if it's just this particular book, because this book is from like 2017, and I know she has other books, so it's possible that her writing has like majorly increased since then, because, 2017 was a long time ago already, which is absolutely insane. But anyways, so yeah, that's the story with this book. So you probably won't ever see it on my shelves because, like I said, I'm gonna donate it since I didn't enjoy it and I need the shelf space. So that is the other book I read this month, and that actually wraps up officially what I read this month. So first off, Real Not Perfect by Stephanie Coleman. The Gilded Cage by Lynette Noni, The Blood Traitor by Lynette Noni, Wings of Starlight by Allison Saft, and then An Enchantment of Ravens by Margaret Rogerson, DNFed. That being said, that is everything I read this month. However, I have started 2 books. You may be asking why I started 2 and not just 1. That is because I needed an audiobook, and I am very, 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 very picky with my audiobooks. Like, the only audiobooks I think I've ever truly enjoyed were City Spies and then the Endling series, which are voiced by the same person, by the way. I really like how she does audiobooks. But, so I'm not a huge audiobook person. I barely listen to audiobooks because I'm so picky. I did, however, need an audiobook the other day. So, I searched up on Audible audiobooks of all the books that I was interested in reading. I didn't like a single one until I got to Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. That one is a series I have been looking at starting, but it's kind of long and intimidating, if I'm being honest. But I did like the person voicing the audiobook, so I did start it. I only got like 20 minutes out of the 25 hours of the audiobook that there is, so I'm not that far into it, but I am enjoying it so far. And it's probably, don't expect me to finish this anytime soon, because, like I said, it's an audiobook, and I'm not a huge audiobook person, so I don't know how much I'll get read, especially with it being 25 hours of listening time, give or take. So, yeah, that is the first book I started, and then last night, I attempted to go back to Will Wilder, because I did start it I read the first 6 pages when I first bought it, and I had enjoyed it. However, I just really was not feeling it last night. So, I ended up picking up another book, which I did start doing a reading vlog of this one, which is going to be a super fun concept. Stay tuned for it, because I'm actually really excited. But, that being said, I did pick it up last night, because I was like, I need to read at least a chapter of something. I read about a chapter and a half of As the Sparrow Flies, which is by Chad Corey, which, let me just tell you, editor me, please put a picture on the screen. He is so nice. I got this book probably not quite a year ago, but nearing a year ago, and I loved the idea of it, and I love the idea of a lot of his books. I just didn't really get around to it. That being said, I am so glad I did pick this up, because I just finished the 2nd chapter, just before I came to record this, and it was so good. I'm actually really enjoying it, even though I'm kind of lost right now, because it's still setting up the story, but I am really loving his writing, and I am loving this so far, so yeah. Anyways, stay tuned, because this is gonna be in a reading vlog, so I have been doing all of that, and that being said, I have this reading vlog planned, and I have a second reading vlog planned, which is gonna be so much fun, and I'm so excited for it, especially because there's lots of books in it that I think you all are going to be very happy that I'm finally reading. I'm very unpredictable when it comes to reading. I can be like, oh, I'm going to read this when I finish this. No, I won't. I will decide that once I finish this book, I'm no longer in the mood for that other book, and I won't read it. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye! My cat is meowing for me, but I'm recording right now, so he can wait.